spirits with Christmas gear. It's good to see some of our councillors doing that tonight. If I could ask Councillor Aldridge to do an acknowledgement of country, please.
Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples of the country. We also acknowledge them as traditional owners and custodians across various lands. We pay our respect to their ancestors, elders, children and young people. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters and communities across the country.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aldridge. There are no apologies. The Good Governance Pledge, item 3. Wodonga councillors are committed to undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the municipal community, to abide by the Model Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Model Councillor Code of Conduct, and 3, faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in the Office of Councillor under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of their skill and judgment. Item 4's declaration by councillors of any conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts? None. That leads us to item 5, confirmation of the minutes. 5.1.1. That the minutes of the special council meeting held on Tuesday, November the 19th, 2024, as attached, be received and confirmed as an accurate record. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. A seconder. Councillor Knight. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5.1.2 is also regarding the minutes for the ordinary council meeting held on Monday, November the 25th, 2024, as attached. Be received and confirmed as an accurate record. Could I have a mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan, and a seconder. Thank you very much, Councillor Seymour. All those in favour? Again, carried unanimously. Thank you. Which leads us to item 6, question time. CEO, are there any questions that have been submitted? No questions. No. Item 7, no petitions. Item 8, no delegate reports. Which leads us to item 9. So the first item, there's 9.1, 29 McGaffins Road, West Wodonga. I'm just wondering, councillors, in this interest, is there an appetite perhaps for Officer Schultz to speak to the item generally and then potentially suspend standing orders so we can have just a general discussion and Q&A regarding some of the items relating to that, and then we can later perhaps go to the resolution. So if councillors are comfortable with that, if I could ask you, Director Schultz, to perhaps introduce the item, and then I'll ask for a mover to suspend standing orders.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. I've asked Council's Manager Statutory Services to be with us at the council meeting this evening. Simon has been dealing with us along with the assessing officer over the last number of months and is best placed to provide us some background information and also to respond to some queries which the councillors may have. So on that note, Mr Mayor, I'll pass over to Simon and he'll take us through a brief intro and some further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the planning permit application 82/2024, a brief overview. The application is for a 2-lot subdivision in a battle axe configuration with access via an 8-metre wide driveway reserve from McGaffins Road. The subject site has a total of 10,100 square metres. Proposed lot 1 at the front, which contains an existing dwelling, is 4,540 square metres. And sorry, that also has some ancillary outbuildings. And proposed lot 2 at the rear is 5,624 square metres proposed. The planning controls the property is within the low density residential zone, and there are no overlays affecting the site. The surrounding area is characterised by low density residential properties with lot sizes ranging in size from 4,000 to 12,000 square metres. In terms of the application was placed on public notice, 15 objections were received to the application. Based on our delegations, more than 5 objections, the matter has to be determined at a council meeting by the councillors. In terms of the themes of the objections, they related to neighbourhood character, impact on existing infrastructure, property value. There was restrictions on title, privacy and amenity, and setting a precedent. And I think that's basic overview of the proposal.
Thank you very much. What I'm actually going to do is ask for someone to move a motion, perhaps as recommended, and if second, then go to vote on suspending standing orders, so we can ask you some questions. Could I have a mover for the motion regarding the recommendation, or otherwise? Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Could I have a seconder? No seconder to...
So you're moving the recommendation?
Yes, as recommended here in the paper, so that the council issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for a 2-lot subdivision at 29 McGaffin Road, West Wodonga, subject to the conditions set out in attachment 8.1.3.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. If possible, we could have a mover for suspending standing orders. And thank you, Councillor Quilty. All those in favour of suspending standing orders, that's unanimous. Thank you. So if I could open up to councillors to ask any questions of Officer Schultz or of Simon, that would be great. Who would like to kick off?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Officer Morn. I'm curious to know how many lots in that estate are covered by the covenant that relates to this particular property.
In terms of this particular covenant, typically a restrictive covenant burdens all of the lots in a plan of subdivision or within an estate, whereas this particular covenant is between purely the previous Wodonga Corporation and the landowner. So in this instance, the covenant applies only directly relates between the landowner and what is now the Wodonga Corporation's powers have been transferred to the Commonwealth Department of Finance. So in terms of interpretation of the covenant, it's not a benefit and burden to the entire estate. It is purely between one landowner, individual landowners. And I couldn't comment on the number of properties that have a similar arrangement or covenant. There are Wodonga, due to the Wodonga Development Corporation, there are covenants really that were used very extensively, probably between the going back as far as the 70s all the way through to early 2000s.
Councillor Corsi.
Thank you for that explanation. You have mentioned the covenants that have been transferred from owner to what used to be the corporation to between owner and the Commonwealth Department of Finance. Is my understanding correct that the Commonwealth Department of Finance has given the current owners a dispensation of some sort from the covenant? And if yes, then are you aware why and due to which circumstances, or there are any specific circumstances why?
The answer is yes. So the owner has sought the consent of the Department of Finance to the proposed subdivision, so specifically to the subdivision. The letter from the Department of Finance doesn't give any reasons. It just simply states that it consents to the subdivision subject to Wodonga Council's decision on the matter.
Oh, so it's subject to,
Yes.
okay. Just further to that, when you purchase a block up there, in the contracts, they have the titles, which are all got similar titles. So it's saying there's no, it's between the individual block, yet there's the development, the DCP plan, which forms part of the contract, and everyone that buys that land under that contract would sign the DCP plan, sign to the DCP plan, and that's so that each block has a building envelope. So if there was no changes to the covenant, how does that allow for changes to allow for 2 building envelopes on the subdivision?
So the covenant is, as Wodonga Council is not party to a covenant, but we can't issue a permit that is contrary to a covenant. And so in terms of the decision making and recommendations, it is the staff, the assessing officer and the staff in making a determination on or recommendation on the matter are purely looking at the wording of the covenant, which states that the transferor, which is now the Commonwealth Department of Finance, can give consent, and it's done that. And so the second part of that is the officers assessing the application based on the merits based on its merits and the provisions of the planning scheme. So it's not a matter we as officers make any judgment on in terms of the covenant. It's purely it's essentially procedural in that.
Councillor Cowan?
Is there any doubt that this proposal might be breaching a covenant?
No, not in my mind.
Other parties that are also covered by this covenant that are in the nearby area, how do you expect them to be affected going forward after this change to vary the proposition that there was a limited to one house on the lot previously?
So if we assume that all properties have a similar covenant, they have a similar ability to seek the consent for a development as per the wording of the covenant. So that ability would apply to anyone who has a similar covenant.
So therefore, that would set a precedent.
Well, each application, so the covenant is, as I mentioned before, is more of a procedural matter, and it's a matter between the landowner and the Department of Finance. They can seek their consent. In terms of setting a precedent, each application is assessed on its merits and based on the provisions of the planning scheme. So it doesn't necessarily flow that a permit would issue in every instance for a subdivision application.
But if it were to get the approval from the Department of Finance, and I'd say that because this one it would probably highly likely others would be able to, if the other lots could meet the minimum size requirement, if they subdivided into 2?
Not necessarily the minimum lot size. The minimum lot size is 2,000 square metres. What's proposed here is a lot of, I think, 4,500 square metres and one of 5,400, which is very much in conformity with surrounding properties.
But
So
some of the surrounding properties have various lot sizes up to 12,000, so some of those 8 or above could go for a similar subdivision.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That could happen, yes.
Just checking in. Those in the chamber, can you hear? You can hear clearly? Good, thank you. Just wanted to check. Thank you. Councillor Cowan.
Further question, thank you, Mr Mayor, to cite Mr Vaughan. I just would like to read to you something that I have here that refers to the Planning and Environment Act, and I hope that you might be able to help me to interpret that in terms of this particular application. It's section 60, subsection 2, applies to restrictive covenants that have been created on or after 25th of June 1991. And it says a planning permit can't be granted to remove or vary a registered restrictive covenant unless the responsible authority is satisfied that any benefiting landowner will be unlikely to suffer material detriment, including financial loss or loss of amenity.
So in terms of the application is not seeking to amend or remove the covenant, but it also, the key word in that is any benefiting lots, and in this instance they're the only, as I've mentioned, the covenant is purely between the landowner and the former AWC, now Department of Family Finance. So if this was a covenant that benefited the whole of the subdivision, and it would state that specifically on the covenant documents, and they wish to amend or remove that covenant, then council would have to apply for a planning permit to do so, and we would notify every property owner.
So can I take from that you are saying very clearly that this covenant that applies to this particular lot doesn't apply to the lot next door?
It may do, but it's not. It doesn't have the same effect as in terms of benefiting the adjoining landowner.
Any other questions?
Yes,
you,
just
Councillor.
a question to interpretation. The covenants, do I understand correctly that the covenants are in place to kind of preserve the character of the neighborhood, the natural environment, the topography of the area, and the neighboring lots benefit from each other's covenants as well? Is that not correct interpretation?
It would be to, yes, keep a low density character with separation, good separation between dwellings, and that would be the purpose of it. It's somewhat unwritten, but that would be what is seeking to be preserved.
With the subdivision, should it go ahead, will there be sufficient separation between the dwellings to preserve the character of density?
In my view, yes. One of the proposed conditions is to impose a building envelope which has generous side setbacks and a particularly generous setback to the rear property of 15 metres. The building envelope, I think, has 10 metres to one side boundary and 8 metre, and that certainly, I think, is maintains that separation between dwellings.
So, Officer Morn, carry through from Councillor Courtie's question. If the covenant was originally put in there with that intent around preserving neighbourhood character, amenity, what's changed to then warrant Department of Treasury and Finance allowing for that to be removed? Are those factors still not as relevant today?
From their perspective? Or
Yeah.
I don't know what. Speaking frankly, I would say that the Department of Finance probably has no particular interest in the outcome of this application. But in terms of the what's changed in terms of the plan, in terms of the development of the area?
Yeah.
Well, think, I mean, it's largely remained unchanged, but the planning provisions change. There used to be a 4,000 square metre. The reason the lots are at 4,000 square metres, there used to be a minimum lot size of 4,000 square metres in the zone. It's now 2,000 square metres. I think rather than saying what's changed, I think it's what's been maintained in terms of the proposal.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask
Councillor Seymour.
a clarifying question? So you're saying that in this this land parcel, like neighbouring, there are parcels of land that are smaller than the 4,000?
Yes, I think there's a image within the report which highlights those lots.
Is that page 43? Sorry.
Yep. It's on page 43.
Okay.
So the lots highlighted in red within 200 metres or less than the proposed rear lot in the area, and the hot lots highlighted in blue I recall as being battle axe configuration.
Thank you.
Are they within the same subdivision of this?
Within 200 metres,
Doesn't mean they're in the same subdivision.
one's next door.
Well,
I don't.
just to also a question here, it's like when I'm looking at the development control plan or the design control plan, which is given as forms part of the contract and we sign off on the land in that subdivision, it says with the building envelopes, it says only in exceptional circumstances and with exceptional, what is exceptional? Circumstances and with express approval of the council and corporation, which we now have the Department of Finance, will there be any departure from these requirements? So it says exceptional, so what are the exceptional circumstances? That's what I'd like to know. And when did we change to block sizes of 2,000 square metres as a minimum? When was that changed?
I have to take that on notice, but it would be 10 to 15 years ago. So
Okay, and was that a council decision or
no,
was that
that's a
planning?
state
Planning.
planning provision. In terms of that plan that you have in front of you,
Yeah.
as I've mentioned, the officers are looking at the provision, looking at the covenant on the title, and that document that doesn't have any link to the covenant. It's a guiding document, but it still allows people to seek permission of the transferor
Yes.
for a development.
But it does set out, as I said, in exceptional circumstances. And I'd like to know why they were given, because people, and I'm only asking questions, so I won't go back into the debates. Yep, sorry.
Good, thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Perhaps then if we could reinstate standing orders, could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Knight. All those in favour of reinstating standing orders? Councillor Hall, are you in favour?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, that's unanimous, thank you. I'm going to go back to the mover, Councillor Aldridge. Would you like to speak to the motion at all?
No, I'm happy to proceed and vote on the motion as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Knight, as a seconder, would you like to speak to it all?
I only have gone off the recommendations from the planning guys and stuff like that. I think a lot of the objections have been dealt with or appear to have been dealt with within the submission. Just looking at the surrounding area and houses around it, it appears to me that it wouldn't be out of place or affect anything greatly.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Any other councillors for comments or questions before we put the motion to a vote? Councillor Cowan.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the recommendation tonight. I feel that we've had 15 objectors in an estate that is that was established nearly 20 years ago, and that area in particular was one of the original areas of development. I feel that the smaller lots, as a comparison, are at different stages of development and were recompensed with the type of investment that went with those types of blocks. Now, low density residential areas in this in Wodonga are highly sought after. Of course, maintaining the rural character of that area is paramount to the amenity. And I feel that a buffer of 15 metres is insufficient to provide the level of privacy that was once provided to the adjoining neighbours. I suspect that people buy large lifestyle blocks because they look carefully at the restrictive covenant, they look carefully at the building envelope, they look carefully at the way that their house will sit in comparison to their adjoining neighbours. So on that basis, I feel that this is affecting the amenity and affecting the rural character of the area. There are conflicting outcomes with the application.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. And Councillor Hall.
Yes, I'm in agreements with Councillor Cowan. People have bought these blocks, they're lifestyle blocks, and it's in a rural residential area. Some of the block sizes are different because what it does is it tends to, like it says, the aim of the objectives of these is to ensure the development is in harmony with the area and rural residential character, to minimise impact on natural features such as trees, wetlands and elevated areas, to provide for sightings of the dwellings by defining wild place building envelopes, and to ensure adequate controls and building materials designs. So there are restrictions on there. There's also issues with water coursement. So some of them are bigger because of the way the water runs through, and there are issues with water, especially on heavy days where there's a lot of rain. And I have concerns with that coming. I know that they've got some controls in for putting drainage in halfway through the Battleaxe driveway, but I'm concerned sometimes when you get a big downpour, it'll run, whether that would be adequate to pick up that rainfall, and could cause some issues. And some of those blocks are designed because of the contour of the land. That's why some are bigger and some are small. Some have had dams put up to pick up the water coming off the hill there. So there's all reasons why it's been cut up the way it has. They buy the blocks because they've got, as Councillor Cowan said, there's building envelopes on it. You know where the building envelopes are. It requires quite a bit of, well, it used to, quite a bit of agreements with different authorities to build outside those building envelopes. This now is creating another building envelope, whereas that block only had one. So I don't know how it gets passed, because we're ultimately creating another larger building envelope, and in the DC plan it says under exceptional circumstances, and I don't know what those are other than to probably make some money out of a larger block. So there's that, and I also do believe it sets a precedent, because I believe a lot of those blocks have similar covenants, partly because I know they do. So I do feel that because this has got approval, I know it will be individually taken on each block, but if you meet the same criteria, there's no reason why it wouldn't get the same approval. So ultimately it could start to change the whole area there, cutting it up into smaller blocks. So that concerns me, because people bought paid big money at the time to buy the lifestyle blocks. So I might be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Quilty?
Thank you. Look, I've got to admit it's a difficult one for me, and I only have a few seconds to make the decision. So I thought if I just think out loud, perhaps it will help me a little bit. I would like to thank everyone for the discussion and the officers for answering the questions. For me, any deliberation about what happens on a block of land starts and pretty much ends with the question of property rights. The property rights of the owners and the property rights or the infringement of such that might spill out and affect the neighbouring blocks. So that's a hard one, and Councillor Cowan and Councillor Hall have made some very good points of how this subdivision may affect the property rights, the amenity of the area, the property values of the neighbors, and also the objective of creating those covenants in the first place, creating the building envelopes, stormwater, drainage, wetland, topography are all very valuable considerations too. On the other side of the spectrum is does the subdivision, how much does it affect the lifestyle of the neighborhood? The neighbors, 15 neighbors, I assume they're neighbors, 15 neighbors voted or contacted us in opposition of this proposed subdevelopment. That probably means that those 15 neighbors are not going to use this precedent that we create and subdivide those properties. The green bit on this map split into two doesn't make the smallest block, I don't believe, in the area. There are blocks of similar or even slightly smaller size, even if they have a little bit of coming out of there. So yeah, look, I take property rights seriously, and I take the fact that people bought the blocks in the area thinking that it will stay, the neighborhood will stay the same, there will be bigger blocks, etc., etc. I'm thinking I'm probably coming to the conclusion that I will support the recommendation based on the fact that I don't see, again, the bit of a doubt is that the former corporation or Department of Finance didn't really give us the reasons why they give this dispensation. They just, I don't know, they're not interested or something. Yeah, that's a serious consideration against it. However, I can't see, I can see us meddling a lot with the property rights of the current owners should we vote against the subdivision, and I can't see that we are affecting the property rights of the neighbors a great deal in allowing this subdivision. So. Yeah, thanks for indulging me in thinking out loud. I'm inclined, and please be assured that I have given sufficient consideration to pros and cons of this, and on this occasion I'm probably inclined to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Seymour and also the CEOs requested to talk about the process. So, Councillor Seymour.
Like Councillor Quilty, I suppose for transparency and just so that the public can hear the thinking process behind our decisions, for me, thank you for explaining all of this information in understandable terms for lay people. It is a hard decision because I'm assuming that these people have bought into these blocks with expectations of lifestyle will continue, and so but also and given that there's 15 objections, that's a lot, I would think, for this area. but Councillor Quilty's made a really good point about land ownership and how that is really important, that you have the right to make decisions for yourself and your land. Yeah. It is a really difficult decision because ultimately we're playing a role in somebody being able to make decisions for their land. So I'd be interested in listening to the CEO before I make my decision, my final decision.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. And if there are no other councillor questions or comments, I'm going to call on the CEO. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, given we've got a number of new councillors, I might just talk the two scenarios here so that when you make your vote, you understand what the process might be. So the first one's obvious. So if the vote gets the majority of councillors in support of the motion up, obviously staff go off and act on that. If the motion doesn't get the support and it is not successful, essentially for the organisation, there's no motion on the books. So I will require a second motion to be put up at that time that explains that councillors are proposing to refuse it or whatever the alternative is. If councillors are proposing to refuse it, given it's a planning matter, we will need planning reasons to explain why that refusal is going up. So that might, I'm not trying to influence your decision, I'm just trying to talk about what the process will be required. So if we do get to that position, we'll have to have another motion on the books to get to there. So hopefully that's of use to you.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any other questions or comments from councillors? And if not, I'm going to call...
One clarifying question on that.
Sure.
If it doesn't get through and we need to put another motion, a second motion, an alternative, with a planning reason, justification, do we need to be able to speak to that now?
So my suggestion might be on that is that we defer this item for later on in the meeting and that staff would look at some of the discussion that has happened and look to prepare what might be some grounds there. So, but it will take staff some time to do that and we will come back to you and see whether we can do that within the meeting. There's obviously implications of not making a decision at all at this council meeting, which we spoke about in the briefing today.
Any further questions of the CEO or Officer Schultz or Officer Morton? If not, we've got the motion before us. All those in favour? Those against? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. So Councillor Quilty, Councillor Aldridge, Councillor Knight, Councillor Goebel.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so all those in favour of the motion as recommended?
That's this one.
Yeah. So I'm going to read that out again.
Do you want me to read that out?
Yes, if you could, Councillor Aldridge.
The council issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for a two-lot subdivision at 29 McGaffins Road, West Wodonga, subject to the conditions set out in attachment 8.1.3.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. So all those in favour? So that's Councillor Knight, Councillor Seymour, Councillor Aldridge, Councillor Quilty, Councillor Goebel. All those against? Councillor Hall, Councillor Cowan. The motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, officers. That now leads us to item 9.2, Wodonga Creek. It's not.
Page 67.
Yeah, thank you. Just as a delay. Thank you. So, yes, councillors, item 9.2, Wodonga Creek concept design. We have a recommendation before us. Would someone like to move the motion as recommended?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, as second. Councillor Knight, sorry. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to?
Yeah, I just quickly look. This has been a long time coming. We've been planning for this for some time. I've had a look at the plan. I think it's got some really good planning options on it, and I really look forward to it. Going ahead, especially in the Diamond Creek. The Diamond Park area. It's got a fantastic children's adventure playground. It's got a little beach area. It's just it's going to be a really great activation of the water area in that area too. So yes, all for it and forward for it to getting done.
Councillor Knight, would you like to also speak to it as the seconder?
I agree with Libby. I think it's about time. It's a great area that can be utilised a lot better. So I think improvements we can.
Right. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Cowan, you.
Yes, yes. Well, this forms part of the proposition that was put up to the regional partnership deal, and the money that is that comes to this is co-funded by council, jointly funded. I think that's we have identified this as a priority, and utilising that creek precinct is going to be really important to our active and passive recreational activities and increasing visitor experience to the area. But also it's such a beautiful part of that we've kind of turned our back on for many years, and now we'll be able to celebrate a bit more with this, with the potential that this master plan offers, this concept plan offers.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Any other comments or questions? Maybe a question to the CEO from me. The engagement policy for a minimum period of 21 days, I'm just thinking about the logistics of that, given where we are this time of the year, Christmas, festive seasons. I know it says minimum 21 days, but how would we mitigate the risk of a lack of engagement due to the time of the year?
Mr. Mayor, the policy talks about that Christmas period and about how we work around that Christmas period.
Right.
So certainly that will be taken into account with the 21 days and made available in the new year.
Great, good. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Councillor Hall, as the mover, would you got any?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I almost forgot to, I've got to be excited with that, but it is going at engagement for feedback, and so I look forward to any feedback that we get, but I'm confident that people will like the master plan, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So no other questions or comments? All those in favour of the motion? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Which now leads us to 9.3, the minutes for the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee. Yeah, so I don't know why that's blinked out. So we've got a recommendation there before us on page. Sorry, for some reason my system's frozen. I'll read it. The minutes. The minutes of the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee of December the 9th, 2024 will be received, and the September 2024 quarterly budget report be endorsed. Could I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Knight, and a seconder. All those in favour? Where's the second? Sorry. Councillor Quilty, sorry. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, it's, I've got nothing in reports for noting, so which now brings us to reports for information. It's for information only. There's no notices of motion. So on 11.1, for record of councillor meetings and 11. Are there any questions or comments on that from councillors? The CEO. Thank you, Councillor Cowan.
I think it's important to note that we have asked for an update on the current status of those in the report, and we're continuing to look at those, particularly the dates that have extended out some period of time now.
So in particular in relation to some of the items in 11.2?
Yes.
Yeah. That's noted, thank you. Any other comments or questions on 11.1 or 11.2 under reports for information? No? Which leads us to item 12, there are notices of motion. So we now move to general business. Any councillors got any general business that would like to share? Perhaps I would. So it's been a very busy week this time of the year, and quite a few of our local organisations either having AGMs or events. So two particular shout outs. One's to La Trobe University for the completion of its nursing labs, which we opened 2 Fridays ago, which was a great event, and it's a really good development for La Trobe University and the education of our health network with support to nurses. It's an incredible facility. So congratulations to La Trobe University. Also, last night, so Wodonga Carols by Candlelight, I believe there were over 5,000 people there. It was a great night. Money raised for Albury Wodonga Health. But just really a shout out to Wodonga Brass, who have been running that event since 1974, 49 years. And without their dedication, hard work, the volunteers, coordinators, that event wouldn't happen. There are some corporate sponsors that also help make it happen. Wodonga Council also is a contributor to that event. But really, just such a great community building event. So, but again, just a shout out to Wodonga Brass making that happen. No, any other items under general business? No. Which now leads us to urgent business. So item 14. So councillors, there's a request for a late item to be considered here, an update on the new Greenfield site hospital locations to be included as agenda item 14.1. And I'm seeking a mover to accept that tabled document. Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Seymour, would you like to speak to that at all in terms of why this should be considered?
I just think, as far as timing wise and just being pertinent to keeping things moving and progressing, I think we need to put that in tonight's meeting.
Great, thank you. Councillor Cowan? Support that? Thank you. So I'll just put that to a vote that this be accepted as a late item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Which now then leads us to 14.1 being the paper itself.
Kevin, excuse me, could you done? Make sure Bunny had a copy of that.
Oh, good. Oh, great, thank you. So item 14.1, update of the new Greenfield site hospital locations. CEO, would you like to speak to it at all, or before we go to a motion? No? Okay. Could I have a mover for the motion as recommended? Councillor Cowan, thank you. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Councillor Cowan, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, yes, and thank you again to the staff and the CEO for putting together this report. The staff have now reported 4 options, and this was reported in our previous notice of motion, and those options include vacant land surrounding William Page Drive and Bandiana Link Road, a VicTrack land near Bandiana Link Interchange near the highway, a Barranduda Development Opportunity Site and the racecourse. the staff have looked at these 4 excellent options, and there's never been any doubt that there was a greenfield site available for a hospital here, either in Wodonga or Albury. But in Wodonga in particular, one stands out and is recommended as the preferred option. And the reason for doing that was that the following criteria have been taken into consideration: that the land matters, the capacity for future expansion, the infrastructure requirements, and particularly road access, highway interchange, access for emergency services, the closeness to the Hume freeway, and the amenity and community needs. The options, all of the options are excellent. I think we can boast that they also sit within growth corridors of Wodonga and really ideal for Greenfield Site Hospital. I think this also demonstrates our spirit of working cooperatively with Albury City Council, who have also put a number of options on the table. And so in bringing this to the meeting tonight, we are progressing further discussion in a timely way. And again, making very clear that there are options for Greenfield Site Hospital development in Wodonga.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Seymour, would you like to speak to it at all?
I don't have any.
Great. Okay. Any other councillors? Councillor Hall.
I'll just add to that. I think really when you look at the options there, and there were, some other reasonable options if it were just looking at Wodonga, but when we're looking at a regional, including Albury and surrounding towns and cities, the William Page Drive Banyan Link site was the standout for accessibility. The topography of the land's reasonably flat, size, has so many ticks, and I think it was always going to be the one that got picked, and hopefully it will get picked by all the councils. So yeah, I think it's a standout, that one. So have no issues in not putting it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other comments? I'd like to make one. I'm very excited to be receiving this report. There's been a lot of speculation around potential greenfield sites, whether there are any, the opportunity to work collaboratively with Albury City Council in identifying a number of sites. It's really hard to do a business case for a greenfield site if you don't have one, and or it's only hypothetical. And typically, it really hurts the business case because of all the unknowns. If you don't have a real site, you start adding in contingencies in the business case, and which only hurts it. So this is, the way I see it, this improves our chances of advancing our advocacy for a greenfield site hospital. If there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to put the motion to a vote, but I'm also cognizant of it's a late report. Chamber audience has a copy, those online don't. I'm wondering whether, Councillor Cowan, you're comfortable reading the motion as recommended. It is a little bit long, but I just think for openness and transparency to our online community.
I'm happy to read through it if you
Yeah, thank you.
like.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge.
If you don't mind, Councillor Cowan.
Sure.
The recommendation that the Council make representation to Albury City to advocate on a two-city, one community approach to the Victorian and New South Wales Health Ministers, providing one preferred site on both sides of the border as the single best site in each state, and demonstrate that Wodonga City Council is impartial about the location of the site and remains committed to the best outcome for the regional community in the provision of a new site, new hospital. Following the agreement of both councils that Mayor Gove will be authorised to co-sign correspondence on the two cities, one community letterhead, advocate for the vacant land surrounding William Page Drive and Bandiana Link Road on the Murray Valley Highway, Wodonga, as the preferred site in Victoria, support Albury City's choice of the site in New South Wales, commend both sides to the relevant state health departments for assessment under appropriate criteria by the Infrastructure Division in consultation with other government departments and including information about off-site infrastructure requirements.
It helps having a councillor who's a professional voice.
Perfect.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Thank you for reading that. So all those in favour of the motion By a show of hands, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Great.
Brought to you by your hair ties.
Conditions apply.
Which now leads us to confidential business. So there's a recommendation that the meeting be closed to members of the public in order to consider matters pursuant to section 3.1 of the Local Government Act 2020, and that the meeting be adjourned for 2 minutes to allow the public to leave the chamber. Could I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Knight. Second, Councillor Quilty. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. That's off. Back to the live stream.
Yeah.
I'm just heading back to that.
Sit on my collar.
I did speak to the Lutheran College for my assignment next year. Victoria Lutheran College.
I'm sure there's a few.
So we're now, having returned to the open meeting and having passed that recommendation, we're at 17.2. Adopt the in-camera recommendations. Did someone want to read those out, or we did read that other, the second one out, but not the first one? Thank you, CEO.
We need to do.
We just read it out and then get a mover. Sorry.
We need to do what was adopted in the document in camera first, then the public release.
Sorry, say that again, Officer Scott. Sorry.
We adopt the in-camera confidential
Yes.
recommendations. They aren't read out.
Yep.
Then
Yep.
we proceed to have the other recommendations read out.
So can I have a mover for the recommendations, the motions adopted during the in-camera session? Councillor Knight. Seconder, Councillor Hall. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. If we can then, the CEO, move to public recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 15.2, proposed development incentives, the public component of the recommendation is that in accordance with its powers under section 169 of the Local Government Act 1989, the council grants a rates concession to Killam Trucking Company Proprietary Limited as the owner of Lot 2 on the proposed plan of subdivision Lot 15 on PS 901 711S in accordance with its Logic Industrial Estate land sales principles document to assist the proper and continued development of the Logic Industrial Estate in Barnawatha North and to ensure delivery of the community benefits, namely the completion of the development within the agreed timeframe and the major investment into Logic Industrial Estate. In relation to item 15.3, the public recommendation for the Australia Day Awards is that Council publicly release the names of the 2025 Australia Day Award winners at the time or times that enable sufficient notice to be given to the award winners and to maximise the public recognition of the awards either through media channels or at the Australia Day ceremony. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you for the public release of decisions made in the closed council meeting, which now leads us to 17.4 for the close of the meeting. If there are no other items, which there aren't, if I could declare the meeting closed at 7:42. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for those online. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.